This is Zero Sum Game, Episode 1, New Beginnings. Viv and Jazz enact a protest that they have been planning for 2 months, while Maeve and Jude argue about food at their stand. I'm outside the city, Viv states. She has been working on this project for weeks, and is positive that today is the day that will put her and her cause on the map. "Are you ready?" she asks into her walkie-talkie. She had Jazz enter Alifast's gates earlier this morning, so there would be no collisions with their protest a few hours from now. After a few more moments of silence, she hears static fill her ears and a muffled reply. "Yes, but what? Well, we have been planning this since March. I can't imagine that something has gotten past our meticulous planning at this point." Static floods her walkie-talkie once again, with no response from her partner. "All right, I'm entering the gates." Viv takes in Alifast one last time before she takes even a step further. From where she's standing, on a small grassy hill, a few breaths from the capital, Alifast seems so tiny, yet the intense reflection of the sun makes the city gleam like nothing she's ever experienced before. Even with all of the cities she's visited, this is the most beautiful and the most deadly city she's ever seen. "This is it, huh?" she remarks, and then laughs. "Everything better be ready when I get there." And with one last breath, and a gleam in her eye, she runs into the gates of Alifast. Come on, Jude. The prices for these are ridiculous. 30 credits for a single pound? After everything I do for you, this is infuriating. The energy and chaos of the city envelops Maeve as her annoyance for her brother grows. "I'm sorry, but you're old enough now to start paying for your own things," Jude replies reluctantly as he continues to check out Maeve's food. "We grew these together. You're not even giving me a discount." Maeve pauses, trying to collect herself. "This isn't fair." "Look, kid, just because I take care of you doesn't mean I'm going to take it easy on you." The anger begins to boil inside of Maeve, making it impossible for her to hold it in anymore. "Oh, wow," Maeve rolls her eyes. "What?" he says, looking up from his checkout. "Is that all you have to say to me?" Maeve holds on to her credits for a moment to directly face Jude, with a twinge of aggression growing more intense by the second. "Do you understand the very concept of overwork and abuse? The harsh reality is that you're overworking me, against my will, no less. And May, hun, I'm trying to teach you responsibility. The chores I give you, the fact that I'm asking for you to pay for your own things, these are learning experiences and are how you're going to become a better and stronger farmer. I just want you to have success in life." "You call this success?" Maeve exclaims. "Your farm is losing money, Jude. Take one look at our farm and people will see that it's failing." Jude looks down at the groceries in his hands and his cheeks begin to flush. He never cries, not in public anyways, but Maeve can tell that she struck a nerve. "Jude," Maeve says sympathetically, "I'm sorry, She cuts herself off. She doesn't really know what to say. For as long as it's just been her and Jude, he's been a hard worker. He's been tending to the gardens, to the animals, to the orchards. She's learned how to be a better person because of him. but sometimes he just keeps pushing. Maeve used to love doing chores with him around the house, around the farm, but after it started going downhill, he began overworking her too. Working overtime is just too much, Maeve continues. Jude takes a breath. You know I don't mean anything by it. I'm sorry, he says. Maeve and Jude hold eye contact for a moment, taking in the silence and the loud noise around them with it. Finally, Jude spoke again. You know what? Take the weekend off. And here, just take the food. I'll see you at home, okay? He looks down, his face sagged, clearly saddened from the argument. Maeve, trying to put the argument aside, reaches over for Jude's hand. It's okay. I'll see you at home. She smiles and takes the groceries. Stay safe, okay? He says. You know I always am. Through the twists and turns of the city streets, Viv plays with her walkie-talkie. For some reason, since she stepped into Alafast, she hasn't been able to reach her partner, Jazz. Jazz is usually pretty good with communications, so this surprised Viv. Did she get into trouble? I mean, how could she? She and Jazz planned for everything, and yet Jazz isn't answering. As she turns the corner to a street-long farmer's market, she collides with a large object. Now, on the ground, she looks around. What happened, she thinks, then sees what, or more like who, she bumped into. Watch where you're going, Viv demands, as she begins to stand. The girl she ran into is relatively small, with thick curly brown hair and deep brown eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Viv feels the warmth coming from her, and clearly she looks upset. But Viv does not have time to deal with that right now. So on her way out, she says, just watch where you're going next time, please, and walks past her like nothing happened. Maeve takes a breath. Who was that? She thinks, with a deep sense of curiosity inside of her. A young girl, not much older than Maeve, had just bumped into her. She had auburn hair, flashing emerald eyes, and a need for something, though she wasn't sure what that thing was. She just had a look to her. Furrowed brow, tight jaw, and she was rushing off to who knows where. You all right? Jude asks as he steps out of the booth. I'm fine, I think. Who? Maeve asks, and without needing to finish her thought, Jude replies, I'm not sure. Jazz, where are you? Viv has been persistently trying to reach Jazz, and still no answer. She planned on meeting her outside of the firehouse at the end of the street, but Jazz was out of sight. I thought we were meeting at the rendezvous point as planned. I don't see you. Viv continues further down the street, her nerves beginning to overwhelm her. This isn't funny, Jazz. Where are you? Finally, after what seems like an eternity, Viv's intercom speaks. I'm here, Jazz says, between pants. I had to split. Cops, they were everywhere. What? Cops? Viv asks. They chased me up a building. I don't think they'll find me all the way up here. Viv can tell Jazz's breathing has become easier. Where exactly is here? Viv asks, eyeing the high rises around her. You know where. Jazz pauses. Look up. Viv looks up at the building she's facing. An abandoned building with an etched out sign above the boarded up door. Ciphers. She cranes her neck, looking around the building and then above. That's when she sees a shadowy figure, just visible from the roof's edge. I can't believe you, Viv glowers. Oh, come on. Just come up, Jazz pleads. They're almost here. When Viv opens the door to Ciphers, a feeling of familiarity fills her senses. The store is small, smaller than she remembers, at least. Books are lining the walls, and dozens of consoles and games are scattered across the floor. The scent of old paper and dust entrances Viv as she begins to search for the back stairs. I can't believe you almost got caught, Viv whispers into her walkie-talkie. The key word here is almost. Jazz laughs through the small box in her hand, then pauses. Viv never understood how Jazz could be so lighthearted all the time. Come on, I'm still here, aren't I? Jazz says, in an attempt to reassure her. Viv sighs. Yes, you are still here, but you did almost blow our cover, Viv explains. How can she explain this to her without spiraling into another fight? We can't afford to lose you right now. You're too important of an asset. Asset, huh? Jazz laughs. Besides, you'll miss me too much, she adds. Viv rolls her eyes. How Jazz could flirt on the job? She had no clue. Viv steps into the back of the store. Wow, she thinks. I never thought I'd be back here again. She takes a quick detour to a set of tables and chairs before heading to the roof. This small table brought back so many memories for her. The chess pieces were even in the same spots they were when she last played. Crazy, right? How this place looks exactly how it did when we were last here. Viv looks up, surprised to see Jazz had made it down so quietly. She nods in response. Even our last game is still intact, Jazz comments, coming over to stand opposite her. And for a moment, just a moment, there was silence between the two of them as they stare at their individual pieces. The white pieces were Viv's, the black ones for Jazz. Too bad we were interrupted, Jazz says, interrupting the silence. I might have won, you know. Maybe, Viv responds, drifting off for a moment, taking in the calm. What time is it? Viv wonders, wanting to change the subject. Jazz looks at her watch and smiles. Got about a few minutes till our protest starts. Ready to head up? Viv nods. Her body feels tense. It's almost time, she thinks. I can't believe it's nearly time. Jazz steps towards her and puts her hands on Viv's shoulders. You're going to do fine, V, she says, with a smirk on her face. I know you will. Her hand falls from Viv's shoulder, and she begins to walk towards the door. You coming? Yeah, sorry, Viv says, snapping out of her almost trance-like nostalgia. It's been such a long time since she's been back at the capital. It feels like forever. How did this even happen? You changing our meeting point, I mean, Viv asked, as the two began climbing the spiral stairs. I tried telling you, but you wouldn't listen. Cops were everywhere, Jazz says. I mean, sure, but we've been planning this for so long, and Viv pauses, thinking over their many planning sessions over the past few weeks, planning this protest. Didn't we already account for cops? She asks. I think we did, Jazz replies hesitantly. Then why did we have to change our rendezvous point? Viv rebuttals. We had a plan. We analyzed the speech, the spot, who was going to be there, literally everything. I know, Jazz says calmly. But you know what? Things change. Maybe someone caught on? Who knows? We can't control everything, she explains. Viv sighs. You know what? Fine. At least everything's set up, she says, while opening the door leading to the roof. Everything's going to be fine. Remember? Besides, I'm always prepared. This makes Viv laugh. Oh, really? She says, putting her hand in front of her face, shading her eyes from the sun. The sky, now bright blue, held the sun's light like a badge, with little to no wind surrounding the city block. Viv steps farther onto the roof to see the farmer's market and the busy, ant-like people down below. And out of the corner of her eye, she sees her people coming into view. With a smile on her face, she looks around for her mic. Are you ready? Viv asks. Always. The farmer's market is coming to a close. We better finish closing shop. Well, maybe it's not a literal shop, but at least we have a place to sell, Maeve says. True, Jude smiles, picking up the empty fruit basket and putting it in the back of his truck. It's nice that we've been given this spot at the farmer's market. Yeah, if only the markets were more than once a week, Maeve sighs. Do you mind if I stay in the city for a while longer, after we're done packing? Maeve never gets much time off, and when she does, most of her time consists of staying at home. Maybe, Jude says, contemplatively. A few moments later, the market erupts. People Maeve has never seen before floods the market streets in all black attire, each of them wearing green face paint. What's going on? Jude asks. Protesters, maybe? Maeve suggests. It looks like a riot. Land of the free, a voice echoes from above, possibly from one of the rooftops. We pride ourselves on being a state for the people, by the people. That voice sounds so familiar, Maeve thinks. A world we can make our own. After a moment, she sees her, the girl she had run into earlier that morning. She was standing on the rooftop of an old game building, mic in hand, standing next to someone. She looks very similar in age to the girl, but Maeve can't tell from such a far distance. She's around the same height as the girl speaking, yet she holds herself very different. While the one speaking lifts her chin up and has quite poised posture, the girl next to her seems to seamlessly shift her weight in and out of view. If that's true, the speaker continues, then why is there still war and poverty? And the speech goes on, and Maeve becomes entranced by what's being said. I honestly don't understand the big fuss. I mean, I may not be the most comfortable, but I have family and a nice farm, and why shouldn't that be enough? Jude says, looking over to Maeve. Look, you might not want to believe it, but poverty has increased exponentially over the past few years, and even more rapidly the past few months. Don't even get me started on the police raids. Well, I guess you may be right, he interrupts, and Maeve sighs, irritated. It's just not fair. Standing up here, speaking in front of all of these people, absolutely exhilarates Viv. The attention, the fact that she can speak for what she believes in. She's never felt anything better. Her speech has slowly gained more and more traction from the people below. There's nothing to see here, folks. Viv stops for a moment to look down. She begins to hear sirens around the block. Cops, Jazz says. We better get going. Hold on. I want to see what they have to say. Viv steps over to the amp, turning the volume all the way up. Static begins echoing through it. Why break up the party so soon? Viv begins. We're doing nothing wrong. The cop looks up. He seems so small from up here, Viv thinks. She's too far up to make out what his badge says, but she sees him reach in his car to pull something out. A megaphone. He turns his device on and replies bluntly, You're making a scene, miss. Look, sir, Viv says, making sure every word is clearly spoken. We're just protesting. There's nothing wrong with protesting, is there? The cop looks up at Viv, frustratingly. We don't want to force you and your friends out of here, but we would really appreciate it if you came down. Viv continues. You haven't given me one good reason to stop. So, I believe that it's our right to keep protesting, no? Well, this market is closing soon, and if you haven't heard, the regent is making an appearance. So I've heard, Viv says, completely cutting off the cop. We should really get going, Jazz whispers behind her. No, not yet, she replies. We're not going anywhere, Viv talks down to the cop. I'd rather have you arrest me on the spot before we lose our chance to show ourselves off to the regent herself. And why would you want to do that? The cop replies. Viv keeps going. It's our right. Under the Freedom of Speech Act, it's our right to stay here. More cops begin circling the block, trapping not only the protesters, but the civilians as well. This isn't a good idea, Jazz whispers again. Viv's nerves begin to buzz, though she attempts to stay as stone-faced as possible. Stand tall, she thinks. Stand tall and don't look or act nervous. This isn't you. The plan may be going south, but this isn't you or the team. We're better than that. We can make it out. If you're not going to comply, the cop sighs. We're going to have to arrest you and your friends. The block is now entirely surrounded. This many cops for a protest? She knew that there was some sort of event today. But why so many cops? Something isn't adding up. Viv looks next to her. Jazz's eyebrows are furrowed and her lips are tight. She sighs and takes Jazz's hand to comfort her. "This is not the time to stand down," she says, not knowing whether she's saying that for Jazz or for herself. This is the first time any of them had been in a situation like this. What if she does something wrong? The cop motions for his fellow policemen to close in. Viv peers down hesitantly to see her protesters. Each of them, with sweat beading down their face, continue firm in their stance. "If you come down, we can handle this in a civilized way," the cop says into his microphone. "We don't want to hurt you." "Sure you don't," Viv exclaims. This is no place to get nervous, she thinks. Viv can feel the tension building in the air. It's thick, almost like smog, filling up her lungs with uncomfortable and unnecessary heaviness. "What do we do?" Jazz asks. "What we do is we wait," Viv says, and the standoff continues. The two girls on the roof stand tall, gleaming like rays of sunshine. Even with the sun shining directly above us now, they still fill the atmosphere with energy. Maeve wishes she was like that. Powerful. Or at least having the ability to exude their level of confidence. It must come in handy all the time. How can they stay so calm? These cops are everywhere, and they're moving fast. It impresses Maeve that they're even still up there. This better not turn into more of a mess than it already has, Jude whispers into her ear. It's not fair that we get enclosed here with some, what do they call themselves? Young revolutionaries? I think they're acting quite ingenious, actually, Maeve articulates. It's not every day that someone takes part in a standoff, especially with authorities. The girls on the roof begin to, what Maeve thinks is whispering. She can almost make out their mouths moving, though it's very slight. "These men in blue and gold want to take our right to speak for ourselves," one begins. "They want to take our voice," the other continues the thought. And as she does, the block becomes eerily silent. "And are we going to let that happen?" one says. And as she does, the crowd begins yelling no. "You will hear our voices." The protesters on the ground continue to chant this over and over again. And after a moment, from who knows where, Maeve hears, "Sick 'em." The crowd goes absolutely wild, and the chaos consumes the people around her. What's going on? She's so confused and doesn't know what's going on. Em, where are you?" Maeve looks around and realizes that she can't see Jude anymore. "Maeve!" he yells. "Oh no, I lost him," she thinks. I lost him. This can't be happening." The crowd grows thick and violent. Maeve can't even see her own feet at this point. "Jude, I can't see you." Unable to move independently, she begins to sway, twirl, and become almost one with the people next to her. Everyone's so close. "Taking a voice from one of us will take a voice from all of us," Viv hears someone say. And from somewhere behind her, Viv hears, "I told you, we should have gotten out of here sooner." Where is this voice coming from? Maeve begins to back up, tugging her arms free from the entanglement of the crowd. I'm sorry, I just couldn't leave. You know as well as I... Maeve hears another voice coming from behind her, and before she knew it, she turns around and... Watch where you're going! Hey! Just her luck, the two protesters she had seen on the roof were standing right in front of her. Just their luck, Viv thinks. The protest was just starting to get interesting and, well, Jazz had asked her to come down and now she ran into someone. Wait, you. I ran into you earlier. The girl looks between the two of them and points to Viv as she rolls her eyes. Yeah, Viv says. She looks to Jazz, who's motioning to leave, though she doesn't know why Jazz is so determined on leaving. I guess it's best that we head back and regroup with their protesters back at their place, Viv thinks. Anyways, Jazz says, interrupting Viv's train of thought, we better get going, Jazz states, tugging on Viv's shirt sleeve and dragging her out of the crowd. And please watch where you're going next time. Before the two leave the alley, Maeve cuts them off. Wait, you don't want to do that. Do what, exactly? Jazz says in reply. Viv looks next to her and sees that Jazz is tense. Though I 100% agree with what you guys were doing today. The cops are going to pursue arrest. The crowd erupted into chaos. Everything was incredibly wild. Jazz cuts the girl off with a sigh. We did what we had to do to get our point across. Those men you call cops are just ruthless killing machines, brainwashed by the corrupt government that only thinks about themselves. The chaos you're talking about was only fair. Fair or not, she says, they're still going to attempt to arrest as many people as possible who are a part of the protest today. You two need to lay low. How can we trust you? Jazz says. We don't even know you. That's the thing. You don't. As you said, you don't know me. But there's one thing that you do know, is that, as far as you know, I am not aligned with the cops, that I don't agree with them whatsoever. You, she nods towards Viv, ran into me in front of my brother's stand earlier today. Okay, Viv says, and that matters. Why? It matters because I have an alibi. I've been working with Jude on our farm for years. I've cared for and volunteered at all of my local shelters. I would never, ever align myself with the people that raids the places that I work at regularly, demanding money and arresting people unjustly. Viv nods intently. Maybe she can trust her, Viv thinks. And look, the girl says, I think I'm all you got right now, she says, looking behind her, and Viv begins to see flashes of blue and red. You can stay the night at my place if you want. You don't have to trust me. You don't have to come with me at all if you don't want to. But I thought it might be nice for you guys to stay in a place that's, well, a bit better than a prison cell. All right, Viv says, looking at Jazz for confirmation. She'd rather not do anything without the approval of her right hand. We better get going then, Jazz says, loosening her grip on Viv's sleeve. Let's go. Thank you for listening to Zero Sum Game Episode 1 New Beginnings. I would like to thank Ben Sounds and Adobe Stock for all of the music that you've heard while listening to this podcast. Join us next time when Maeve, Viv, and Jazz head to Maeve's barn for the night.